Everyone, welcome to tonight's rendition of B'nai Brith SAC-LHR's Fireside chat. Very excited to be joined by all of you here on Zoom, and grateful to have all those who are joining us via YouTube. I'm Richard Robertson. I'm B'nai Brith Canada's Director of Research and Advocacy, and I will be moderating tonight's discussion. And it really is a privilege for me to be moderating tonight's discussion with two really amazing individuals. Just a little bit of background. This fireside chat is a regular of our B'nai Brith program. It's a program that we take great pride in. Impressive past guests have included Jason Kenney, Diane Francis, Pierre Poilievre, the chief of both the York Region and Toronto Police, and the Ontario Provincial Police Chief Commissioner Tom Carrick. So thank you all for joining us. Our two guests for tonight need no introduction, but it is my responsibility to give them one. So we are joined tonight by Reverend Majed El Shafie. Majed El Shafie is the founder of One Free World International. Born in Egypt, he later converted to Christianity. Unfortunately, Majed was arrested while in Egypt. He escaped Egypt via jet ski to Eilat, and has since enjoyed his freedom after being released from custody in Israel. We are incredibly grateful to have Majed and hope to learn from his valuable and learned insight. Also joining us tonight is Raheel Raza. Raheel is the president of the Council of Muslims Facing Tomorrow, founding member of the Muslim Reform Movement, director of Forum for Learning, and president of the steering committee of the Council of Muslims Against Anti-Semitism, and is a member of the National Advisory Board of the Abraham Global Peace Initiative. Raheel is also an award-winning journalist, public speaker, advocate for human rights, gender equality, and dignity and diversity. So our agenda for tonight is we'll have Raheel and Majed provide us with introductions to better ground our discussion, and then we will have an engaging discussion. If anyone does have any questions for Raheel or for Majed, please send them to me in the chat. In addition to moderating the chat, I will also be curating the discussions, and I will do my best to get to everyone's questions. So Raheel and Majed, the floor is yours. If one of you would like to start.
Well, it's a pleasure meeting you and being here with you, but it's always ladies first. So I will ask Raheel to start. Thank you.
Thank you, Majed. Good evening, everyone. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here, although we are meeting in very tough and trying times. As Richard told you, my name is Raheel Raza. I'm a Pakistani by birth, a Canadian by choice, and Islam is my spiritual journey. I'm an observant Muslim, not a hyphenated one. I've spent the last 30 years combating Islamist extremism, anti-Semitism, and hatred. I'm an author, a public speaker, an advocate for human rights with a focus on women and youth. What else can I tell you? I'm a grandmother, I'm a mother, and I'm really concerned about the future of our next generations, which is why I do what I do. And I am not at all politically correct. So you'll hear me say some things which in this woke culture, a lot of people don't, with apologies to Richard. So now let's talk about why I'm here. The seeds of my interest in the Jewish community were sown at the age of 12 when I read the diary of Anne Frank in Pakistan. Due to the environment there, the seeds did not flower until I came to Canada in 1988. And then I visited Israel for the first time in 2007. And I have been there 13 times. I should mention here that on my 13th visit, When I landed, the immigration officer looked at me and said, "Where's your Israeli passport?" And I think that said a lot. Over to you, Majed.
Majed, if you'd like to provide your introduction. Bernie, can you see if we still have Majed in the call?
He is still in the call. I can see him in the call.
Okay.
I can see him in the list.
Yeah, his mic dropped off again.
Okay. So what we'll do is, Majed, if you're able to join us and fix your mic issue, please just let us know, and we'll commence with your introduction. But
He's here.
Can you hear me now?
yes, we can hear you now, Majed.
Okay, thank you so much. I would like to thank Aubrey Zidenberg, my dear friend, my mother, Raheel, sister as well. So it's a pleasure to be here again in an event. It's always an honor, Raheel, to be side by side with you. My name is Majed El Shafie. I'm a Christian. I converted from in the U18 back home in Egypt. And as a result of this conversion,
It appears as if we've lost Majed, so we'll wait for Majed to rejoin us. But in the interim, Raheel, I was going to start by asking you and Majed, as non-members of the Jewish faith, but allies of the Jewish faith, how have you felt about the rise in anti-Semitism that we've been witnessing recently in Canada?
The rise of anti-Semitism, not just in Canada, but globally, of course, as you know, is not a new thing. But after October 7th, it has really gone off the wall. Okay, Majed is back.
Hello, Majed. Have you corrected your mic issue? Majed, we're having trouble hearing you. Perhaps you might want to I'm going to suggest, Majed, that perhaps oh, there, we now have your image. Perhaps this will be a better connection.
can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. For some reason or another, the Zoom keeps disconnecting. If you can hear me now, I will just. Do you want me to start the introduction from the beginning?
Yes, please.
Okay. So as I was saying, it's a pleasure and honor to be with you here in this event. I would like to thank my close friend and my brother Aubrey and my sister Raheel. Raheel, it's always a pleasure being with you.
No, Bernie, perhaps we can work with Majed to better or to restore his connection. In the interim, I will continue the discussion with Raheel. So Raheel, you were explaining to us your thoughts on the rise in anti-Semitism since October 7th.
Yes, so we've seen rising anti-Semitism in Canada specifically and globally as well. But after October 7th, it just became appalling and unbearable. And it continued to grow at a rate, which I'm sure you all know the statistics. It is the largest number of hate crimes that have taken place on the streets of Canada, specifically in Toronto, on the streets, synagogues, educational institutions. And what is so frustrating as a non-Jewish person looking in from the outside is that nothing seems to have been done about it from the top down. And, it is very, very concerning, the fear among my Jewish friends, the young people. And it has gone on and on. And it's been a very, very long time. It should have stopped by now, but we see that it hasn't. So it compels people like me who are not part of the Jewish faith to speak out continuously against what is happening.
And we're very, very grateful, Raheel, that you do so. Obviously, a large part of your work involves intersectionality and breaking down the barriers between different communities. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about the work that you've been doing since October 7th to build relationships between the Jewish and the Muslim community?
Yes, so on October 7th, we were the first Muslim organization, the Council of Muslims Against Anti-Semitism, to put out a press release. And I should just mention here that the Council of Muslims Against Anti-Semitism comprises of a steering committee and advisory board that is entirely Muslim. We never wanted anyone to say that we were working on anyone else's agenda. So it is a pure Muslim board. It's global across North America and Europe and in the United Kingdom. And together we signed a document, which is on our website, which condemned in no uncertain terms the attack of October 7th and the sexual violence that took place. And since then, it has been almost a daily putting out of fires everywhere. I write articles for the National Post. I take place on panels. I travel to speak in places where they have never understood that there might be a Muslim who is speaking out in support of Israel's right to exist and condemning anti-Semitism. So all our steering committee and board members are committed to this. On March 3rd this year, we hosted a huge event which was related to the sexual violence of October 7th. And our board members and steering committee members came and spoke, and we all spoke with one voice. And our mentor in that program was Professor Ruth Halperin Kadari, who, as you know, has done a lot of study on the sexual violence issue. So it is an ongoing journey. It doesn't stop because every day there is something new that's happening, and we have to speak out against it. We can't stay silent.
Well, thank you, Raheel, for all the work that you have been doing. And Majed, welcome back to the call. Raheel was just explaining to us a little bit about what she's been doing in regards to fostering intersectionality since October 7th. But now that we have you and your connection looks strong, perhaps we could get your introduction and we'll incorporate you into the conversation.
Well, I think I'm the only one in this show that ever introduced himself 3 times, so that's perfect.
It's an honor.
God bless you. As I was saying, thank you so much for having me. It's a great honor to be with you and my brother Aubrey Zidenberg and my sister Raheel. It's a pleasure to be with wonderful people like yourself as well. My name is Majed El Shafie. I'm the founder and president of One Free World International for Human Rights. I converted from Islam to Christianity in the age of 18 back home in Egypt. And as a result of this conversion, I was arrested in the by the Egyptian authority in the Egyptian prison. I was tortured very severely. And facing the death penalty, I stole a jet ski and I crossed the border from Taba to Eilat. So that was, of course, 25 years ago. So Israel to me is not just a country, it's not just a flag, it's not just a nation. Israel to me is the country that God used to save my life. And that's how was able to see what is really Israel in the reality, not the way that they try to project it in the media or the way that they tell us about it in the school, but actually to interact, to see it myself and to live there for a while before, of course, being accepted here to my wonderful country, Canada, and to become a Canadian. When I came here, I created One Free World International to fight for people that facing persecution like myself. And when October 7 happened, of course, we have operations in Syria and Iraq and Ukraine and Afghanistan and Pakistan, Armenia and Azerbaijan and so on, every front line. But when October 7 happened, the massacre of October 7 happened, immediately we went there. We operated a week after I was in Israel, and we was able to see the kibbutzim, a meeting with the family of the victims, family of hostages, And we are in the process of creating a documentary movie. It's called Dying to Live. And it's supposed to be released on October 6th, the day before the anniversary. And in this movie, we have scholars, we have survivors, we have Iranians, we have Raheel speaking in the movie, we have different imams, we have Arabs, Palestinians talking about their point of view. And I believe that this movie will make a huge difference in a sense of addressing October 7th from every angle, include the rising of the anti-Semitism in our country and in Europe and in North America in general. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Majed. And the topic for tonight's discussion is countering extremism and radicalization in a polarized Canada. So I want to focus this discussion on more than just the rise in anti-Semitism, because I believe that the rise in extremism and radicalization in Canada threatens more than just the community and threatens the very sanctity of our Canadian democracy. So Majed, is somebody who's, experienced persecution for their beliefs or for or due to perhaps extremism and radicalization. What do you how do you feel when you see the rise in radicalization and extremism in Canada?
I think it's very dangerous, and it's not only in Canada. You can see it in the United States, you can see it in Europe, and even October 7 increased, make us see the true pictures. When you're seeing students in a very high educated universities, when you see people in the streets, they are demonstrating, they are taking the Palestinian side, Hamas side, raising the flag of Hamas, raising the flag of Hezbollah, of even Iran. I think this is extremely alarming, but I'm glad that this is happening now because it can show us the truth. Everything was hidden. And the main question that these people have to ask, where have you been when the Iranians was killing their own people just because a woman did not cover her hair properly? Where have you been when Syria was killing, Bashar al-Assad was killing his own people, when Saudi Arabia was attacking Yemen, even when China was attacking the Muslim Uyghurs and killing them, putting them in a concentration camp? So let's make something very clear. The increase of the extremism is coming mostly from the lack of the proper education and accountability in our mosques, the lack of accountability online. It is extremely important that we understand that the solution, we are the solution, not our government. If we looked at our government, especially the Liberal government, with my all due respect, is useless. But when we are the people, we are people like Raheel, people like our organization, people like B'nai Brith, we have to take a step to confront this issue, and we have to be the solution. Don't wait for anybody else to bring the solution to you.
And thank you for that, Majed. And Raheel and Majed, I'd like to ask you guys a question, or sorry, not you guys, the two of you. We have the very esteemed woman, Raheel Raza. It's just, it's a bad habit of mine. I apologize.
I'm used to being called a guy. It's okay.
Well, your stature is far too great for that. So the follow-up question I'd like to ask the two of you is, Majed made reference to this being a global issue of radicalization and extremism. Do you feel as if this is something that is being imported into Canada? Is this something that that is existing as a result of a global phenomenon, or do you think that the rise in radicalization and extremism in Canada is a Canadian problem?
Well, I would say it is a Canadian problem because it is happening here. But the rise of radicalization, as my brother Majed so clearly said, has been there for a very long time. Right after 9/11, we were warning the government and the leaders and the policymakers that they need to do something, especially the radicalization of youth. And it has only gotten worse. And yes, foreign interference and immigration patterns do add to it, but it is something that is happening right here, so we have to deal with it as a Canadian problem. Unfortunately, many people looked at it as a problem of those people. It's not those people, it's us. This is something that affects all of us. It sweeps us all. When I wrote my first book, and then the second and third, people said she's a fearmonger, because this is what I was saying. Read the writing on the wall. The radicalization in its essence leads to hate, which leads to anti-Semitism and then violence. It's all connected. It's not four separate things. The hate that comes through radicalization leads to blatant anti-Semitism. And we've seen it all over, especially in Europe, in the UK. So yes, it is a very Canadian problem, and we need to find a Canadian solution to it.
And Majed, would you like to add to that?
I would like to add that this problem is not only in Canada. Of course, I understand what Raheel is saying, and I agree completely with her. But you have to see it as well. In Europe, is much worse. In the United States, in Canada, we come in the second space per se. But the issue that we have to be, and with all due respect, let's not be politically correct about it. Like, politically correctness is the very cancer in our Canadian fabric. We have to confront this issue, we all as a society. It doesn't mean that we hate a group or we're discriminating against group. Raheel is a Muslim and she's my sister, and she will always be my sister, and I love her dearly. And I'm a Christian converted from Islam, and she loved me dearly as a brother. There is no hatred here. What's here is politically correctness, and we have to wake up, because it will be too late if it's not already too late. But when we're taking a look at the education in the Quran itself, the imams, some of our mosques, even our immigrants, when they are coming here to the country. Andrew Cheer just went on the TV not that long time ago, maybe yesterday or 2 days ago, and they said that there was a guy that was planning, he and his son, to commit a terrorist attack here in Canada. He was already, before he comes here in Canada, he was in an ISIS video, and yet the Immigration Canada allowed him, yet the Prime Minister allowed him. What are we waiting for? What are we waiting for? We have to listen, I'm an immigrant. I'm a refugee. I came here to the country as a refugee. I'm not a white guy. So, you know, if anybody thinking that I'm racist, I'm a brown, so excuse me. So let's just cut the crap. The issue here is when we're bringing people here to Canada, that we don't know their background, we don't understand their culture, we don't understand what exactly that they are planning to do. When we ignore CSIS, when we ignore the RCMP, when we ignore the recommendation from our intelligence community, that's when problems happen, and we are in it. And it's a failure of a leadership from Trudeau's government.
And
let me just add to what Majed has said.
Absolutely, Raheel.
Yes, at risk are our youth. So the immigrant youth, both Canadian and specifically Muslim youth, have been totally confused. They are the TikTok generation. They don't have information. They're not educated about world affairs. They get drawn into this Islamist ideology. And as Majed, as you said, we are not here to be politically correct. The political Islam and the Islamist ideology is a huge threat. And it is something that needs to be dealt with. But who's doing it? You know, the imams are not doing it. The teachers are not doing it. Educational institutions, which would have been the place where children could have learned, have been totally taken over by the woke ideology. So it's not, critical thinking, it does not exist among our youth so that they can differentiate between right and wrong, between good and evil, when it's as clear as black and white.
Very wise words, Raheel. Thank you for that. I have a follow-up question in a way to that. It's clear that we have an issue that we need to respond to here in this country, but Canada has a large Muslim population, and I'd like to think that the vast majority of our Muslim population is not engaging in radicalized or extremist activity. So how do we confront the extremism in the radicalization without unduly prejudicing the greater Muslim community?
And you're asking this question to whom?
When I ask, I'm asking to both of you, but
Raheel, go ahead. Raheel, go ahead, please.
let's do ladies first again, Majed. I like that system.
Well, as a Muslim, I'll respond to this. I think it's very important for everyone, including Muslims, to understand the difference between Islamism, which is a political ideology, and spiritual Islam, which is what I follow. And so that vast difference puts things clearly. It's not happening anywhere. From the leaders, from the policymakers, they are confused as well. When we have a leader who says that we have no Canadian values, how can we teach our children Canadian values? I'll give you my example. I have two boys who grew up here, and the first thing they learned was loyalty to the land in which they live, which, by the way, is an Islamic concept. But is that taught? Do we teach them loyalty so that they won't harm the country they live in? So this work has to be done at many levels. It has to be done from the religious leadership down. It's not happening in mosques. In fact, they're promoting hate and divisiveness, most of them. It's not happening from the policymakers, not happening from the leadership down. So it's to us as parents on what we teach our children, the values that we teach our children. The values about peace, love, and tolerance. How difficult is that? But it is not happening. These people are gullible to social media and the misinformation that is out there. So they absorb all of this. And then, of course, when we have religious leaders saying that you must hate a particular community or a particular country, they absorb that. So we have to have a counter narrative that is stronger than the narrative of the religious leadership. Would you agree, Majed?
I agree with you. I think that the solution is education, education, education. But it not only comes from the imams of the mosques or moderate Muslim like yourself, or no. I think even we have to go further to educate even our communities. It's very important that we understand, if we are focusing in the youth per se, when we have an elements within our social media, within our mosques, within our leaders, within the oak culture, as you called it, when we have all of these elements, pushing all of these hate ideas to our youth, where is the other youth? Where is our communities? Jewish community, Christian community, whatever community, even atheists, even LGBT community. Where are they? Today, you have an LGBT community, with my all due respect, is standing with Gaza, is standing with Hamas. Do you know what they will do to you if you are in Gaza? They will kill you. They will cut your head off and throw you off the building. So it's obviously there is even lack of education in our side as well, not only the Muslim youth, but even our youth. We are living in a society where people are still discussing together if you are a male or female, what the definition between male and female. Look between your legs and you will know if you are a male or female. Are you confused? We're living in a culture that you are in the Olympics, in the opening Olympics, they will mock Christ right there. They will mock him. They will make, the Last Supper without any fear of any of our action. They couldn't do it with the Muslim community. They know that they will burn their homes next day. So we are in a culture that even us as a Jewish community, as a Christian community, as LGBT community, as whatever community, we have to educate our kids. We have to understand politically correctness is dangerous. And we have to stand beside the newcomers. And in order for them to understand what is the Canadian culture, what is the Canadian principles and values. Don't expect them to fight alone. Don't leave them to fall in the trap of the extremism. Stand with them, support them, make them know the difference between right and wrong. That's how we will win the war.
And perhaps a follow-up I can ask for that, Majed, and maybe we'll have you go first, and then we'll get Raheel to respond as well, is if our government is failing to take this on behalf of our youth and on behalf of all Canadians, and this type of education that is required isn't being facilitated, as an individual who's on the front lines of advocating for human rights and advocating for society, as a spiritual leader as well, what can we do in order to combat this as everyday individuals? Most people on our call are lay people, but they're here with us tonight to hear from you and Raheel, because they care about these issues. And a lot of the time I get asked afterwards when we have these discussions, what can I do to make a change? So Majed, how do you suggest that we begin to move the needle, is a phrase we like to use at B'nai Brith. So I'll use that, to move the needle, to begin to change things and to teach our youth what's necessary.
Our Bible said faith without action is a dead faith. So that means that we have to take action. Start by your household. Start by educating your kids. Start by your family. And after that, you move a step forward and you go to your community. You go to your church, to your mosque, to your synagogue, to your temple, to whoever it is. And after that, you go to your MP, write them a letter. Make them understand how much you are upset from all of these issues. Do not, if you remain silent, you lost your right to complain. You have to understand that. If you remain silent, you lost your right to complain. You have to make your voice known to the Prime Minister, send a letter, send an email, write to your local media. Whatever you do, doesn't matter how small action that you say, oh, I'm just one person. You are, one time somebody told me, all of this effort just a drop in the ocean. And what is ocean but multiple drops? Every person listening to us right now, your action can make a difference.
That was incredibly philosophical, Majed. I really enjoyed it. I haven't heard that expression before, but that's one that I'm certainly going to take away from this call. Raheel, would you like to add your opinion?
Yes, I certainly would. Thank you. The famous philosopher Hans Kung said, no peace among nations without peace between religions, and no peace among religions without dialogue among religions. We are not having that dialogue. It is so important that we talk to each other, as Majed said, and as his organization does. I mean, Majed and I get together once a month. We don't agree on everything, but at least we are having a dialogue. We talk to each other. Specifically the Jewish and Muslim communities in the aftermath of October 7th are getting very polarized. Before that, we were able to bring Jews and Muslims together for many events. It is becoming more and more difficult because of the propaganda, because of the false news, but we can't let this go. We have to continue to build bridges. We have to continue to find ways in which we can talk to each other. And as I said, it doesn't necessarily mean we agree with each other, but let's hear each other out. Let's listen to each other. And for that, we have tried to focus on youth, bringing small groups of Jewish and Muslim youth together over a social event, a dinner. That's how the drop in the ocean becomes larger. And it's something that we can't stop doing. And by the way, there are many interfaith groups that exist in Canada, but this is all fluff stuff. It's about your latkes and my samosas and Christmas cake. That's not what it is. The conversation has to be about hard issues, about issues that affect us, like we're talking today. How often do we sit and have these discussions? So that Majed has had many roundtables with people from diverse faiths. I've been part of them. And you go away feeling like you've achieved something.
But Raheel, I thought that we both always agreed on one thing, that I'm a very handsome man. So I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I hear exactly what you're saying, Raheel, and I completely agree. There is not enough dialogue, and that dialogue is absolutely pivotal. So I actually think that we can overcome some of the misinformation and some of the isolation on this very call. And that's why I'm so grateful to have both of you joining us here tonight. In an effort to sort of maybe remove some of the stigmatization, I know that the Jewish community, I hear a lot from those who I work with, that they're feeling ostracized, they're feeling isolated. Maybe Raheel and then Majed, you could tell us, how does the spiritual Muslim community, how does the Christian community actually feel about what's going on? Are they upset with it? Are they just as disturbed as it? Are they grieving with their Jewish brothers and sisters?
Well, anti-Semitism, you need to know that anti-Semitism is life and well. So when we're talking about both communities, Christians or Muslim community, you find that some that will support you, you found the many that will sympathize with you, but also you found the many more that will be affected by the media and what's happening in the media and what they see in the media. without even understanding or even investigating the facts or the information that they are receiving. So when you have a liberal media, I don't want to call liberal or conservative media, but when you have a media that basically calling it even genocide, there is some medias out there, Western media, they are calling what's happening in Gaza as genocide. They don't even understand the definition of genocide. When you have people that they are ignoring the very fact that Hamas started this war, and you know what? All of us will agree on one thing, that we need free Gaza. I agree with you. I agree with them. I agree with the demonstrators. I want free Gaza, but I want free Gaza from Hamas. I want free Gaza from an organization that is stealing the sources of the Palestinian people, that destroying their infrastructure, that threatening their people, taking away their freedom, and above all, celebrating in a seven-star hotel in Qatar while their people is suffering. Hamas had 2 years to prepare for this war. They didn't build one shelter above ground to their people. It's only built tunnels to their own criminals, their own terrorists. This is something that needs to be in the media. This is something that we need to discuss. We have to tell the people the truth, even when we suffer, even when we get slashbacks, even when our security in danger. We have to take a step. I went to Israel to show the people, and I'm making this documentary in an order to show them firsthand. Thank you.
Majed, for once, I agree with you 100% as well. You
For
hit the
once,
nail on the
for
spot.
once, Raheel, that's what it is?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have sibling rivalry. But I would like to take this moment to tell every Jewish person who's watching that you're not alone. We have put our lives on line for this cause, and we will continue to do that until the situation is resolved. But in terms of, but I want to quickly address a question that has just come up. Shall I go ahead, Richard, or did you want to monitor this? This is about wearing Jewish symbols.
So that question was not sent to me, but by all means, please.
I think Fran Morrison sent it to me directly. And
by all means, Raheel.
Yes. Fran, in a country where women can wear hijab and niqab without being confronted, certainly you have a right to wear your Jewish symbols. I would never remove them for any reason at all. People just need to get used to it. So, you know, the Jewish community is peace-loving, too peace-loving, but, you know, they don't retort, in other words, but we need to teach our Jewish children to stand up in pride for who they are and what they are and whatever Jewish symbols that they are wearing. You know, this is not 1942, and God forbid it should ever be again. But this time we are there. And in response to your earlier question, Majed was right. There are people in the Muslim community who support Hamas, and then there are people in the Muslim community, once you talk to them, understand what the real issue is. They don't know the history. They don't know the geography. They don't know why Israel came into existence. They've never met a Jewish or Palestinian person in their lives, yet they'll drape a scarf around their head and go out in the streets and, you know, rally against something that they have no clue about. So we have to find ways to make them talk, you know, express what they're saying and then correct them when they're wrong. And I'll give you an example. In our living room, on the coffee table, we have a book on the IDF and we have a book on the 75 years of Israel. And when our Muslim friends come, they're surprised and curious and a little taken aback, and they say, why is this here? It gives us an opportunity to talk about our trips to Israel. And it was a life-changing experience, by the way. Every preconceived notion that I had was removed. And since then, I've been a fervent visitor to Israel, a supporter of Israel's right to exist, and for the Jewish people to live in peace.
Thank you for that, Raheel. And Majed raised a very good point earlier about the media. And I've received several comments in the chat talking about the media, but we've also received several questions about unions and school boards. And I believe that the stances being taken by our unions in our school boards are a byproduct of this biased media that we see, in the lack of understanding, Raheel, that you were talking about, of individuals who are acting without really knowing. So the question that I have is, how can we work with institutions? Do you see there being an ability to work with institutions like unions or like school boards to affect change? Any thoughts on those two things? Because we're getting a lot of questions about those two entities specifically.
Well, you have to understand, when we're talking about union and school boards and so on, all of this being affected by the politically correctness and by the propaganda that we see. And all of them has been affected by elections, that they need more votes per se. So they don't want to upset any communities. They don't want, it is extremely important to confront them, to confront the leadership. It's important to understand that the propaganda that we're seeing today in our media, such as Al Jazeera, for example, Al Jazeera is not supposed to be broadcasting anywhere, because the information that they're providing is absolutely false, being provided by Qatari money, being controlled by Qatari and by the extremists. So we have to understand that there is a free media and there is a false media. And when it comes to the false media, we have to understand that they are dangerous as person holding a gun. This is their issues. But when we are talking about the unions and the school board, they are not supposed to be even, interfering within any political situations. But they are doing this once again because the elections, once again because they're prophets, once again because they want to look cool. It's become a fashion to attack Israel. It's become a fashion to stand with the Palestinians. And make no mistake, we don't hate the Palestinians. I don't believe that me and Raheel hate the Palestinians ever. We will never. I don't think anybody in this chat group hate Palestinians. I did not meet one Israeli person coming to me and say, I wish all the Palestinians is dead. Never. I never experienced this with any Israeli Jewish person. I'm sure that maybe there is some extreme here or some extreme there, but I did not meet them, and I don't know if they exist or not. The point here is that these unions, they have to know the facts. They have to be educated. And if you are making a statement that is not correct, you have to be prepared to be sued. You have to prepare that there is accountability. You have to understand that you will hear from our communities. But the problem when they are doing what they are doing, and we are not confronting them, we are not addressing this issue publicly, that's when problems happen, and that's when they will continue from false accusation to false commitment, and that's what we need to stop.
Yes, if I may add to this, in response to your question, Richard, each one of us has certain capabilities. Each one of us has certain social groups, and we need to use those. For example, I'm a writer. So when the APR policy came out in the Toronto District School Board, I wrote an op-ed in the National Post that it's unfair and it's biased. And so, there are those who have connections right to your, local politician, right to the Toronto District School Board. There is power of the pen, and there is power in numbers. Let us never think that they have outnumbered us. Our narrative has to be louder and stronger. Our words have to be louder and stronger. And our activism has to be stronger. And it can be done at many different levels. None of you are helpless in this. And so make phone calls, write letters, continue to push for what is right.
And they did not outnumber us yet per se, but I can assure you that they will if we do not take the action now. If you remain silent, you will become part of this crime. I need everybody to listen to what I'm saying carefully. If you remain silent and you did not do your part, you will become partner in this crime. In the criminal code, if you saw a crime and you did not report it to the authority, you become a partner. So I need to tell everybody that this will be up to us to stop this evil. Do not wait for Trudeau and his government. You need to make a stand. You need to take a stand.
Yes, I agree with Majid. Let's not wait for it to happen from the top down. Each one of us is responsible for bringing about change.
And Majid, that reminds me of a quote, I believe, by Elie Wiesel when talking about the Holocaust, that if we don't speak up and if we don't remember, then it's akin to killing the victims twice. And so I see a lot of relevance in what you're in what you just said. And I know that I've already done this, but I want to take the opportunity again to thank you both for your activism and for your, honestly, for your human spirit, because I'm finding myself being reinvigorated and emboldened as I talk to both of you, and I'm sure that many in this chat are as well. The next question is for you specifically, Raheel. And you sort of gave us the perfect segue when you were talking about your work as a writer. How is your work? Do you find I know earlier you said that when you put out some stuff after 9/11, you were called a hate monger. How is your work how do you find your work is generally received in your community? And does it affect your ability to be a spiritual Muslim and to interact with other Muslims and to go to mosque, things like that?
In all my writings, I have been very careful to not abuse Islam in any way, because it is my faith. It is the faith of all the 1.6 billion Muslims. And a large part of our work is within the Muslim communities, because that's where the change has to come. So, I'm not an ex-Muslim, and I don't want to alienate the people that I need to work with. So I still have a large following, and I do go to large gatherings. They read my articles. They may not necessarily agree with them, but they say, good for you that at least you are saying something. And I say it from the perspective of being within the faith. I'm trying to tell them that what you are doing and what you are saying goes directly against the tenets of the faith. This is not what a faith is about. And so change your thinking to the 21st century. We are not living in 7th century Arabia, where there was tribal warfare. And if a camel from one tribe went into the other, they would go out and kill, because there was no Security Council. Or we now have nation states. And all issues can be addressed, through tolerance, through understanding, and through dialogue. So let's talk. First of all, let's talk. And then we'll find ways in which to find solutions.
Well, Raheel, it sounds like you're expertly undertaking a balancing act that I certainly am not envious of.
It's a very fine balancing act. It has brought me a lot of death threats, lawsuits, hate mail. But you know what? At my age, it doesn't matter. I'm not concerned about popularity. I want to speak the truth.
And Raheel, I agree with what you said, that certainly change needs to occur within the Muslim community, certainly when it comes to radicalization, extremism, the protecting of our youth, who are the most vulnerable members of that community. But I believe that Majid used the term wokeism earlier, and it's become apparent to me that when we're fighting this misinformation, this knowledge battle, we have to educate those who aren't getting the proper knowledge because of their religious affiliations, but also those who aren't getting the proper knowledge because perhaps our societal systems have failed them. And I was speaking to a really brilliant individual recently, and they suggested to me that in order to combat wokeism, we need to change the narrative so that people understand that Israelis and Palestinians are both being victimized by Hamas. And I was wondering, in the work that you do in your own communities, how have you had success in demonstrating that Hamas and that terror entities, that those are the real threat to democracy?
Of course, and it's very clear, with all due respect. Sorry, I would just want to add something to Raheel. Raheel is always very wise and wonderful. And she's talking less talk. She said less talk, and I agree with her. But we've been talking, and it's not just any talk. We have to talk the tough, hard talk, and we have to accept each other difference per se. And beside talking, let's take an action, because enough talking. We've been talking, and some of this talk have to be projected, have to be translated to an action. And part of this action is like when we're sitting down explaining if Hamas is a terrorist organization, everybody knows that Hamas is a terrorist organization. Everybody knows I can assure you, everybody watching in the TV, they know that Hamas killed children, they killed babies on October 7, and even before October 7. They know that Hamas even killed their own people, Fatah, when they made the election and Hamas took over Gaza. They killed even their own people. Even Arab and Muslims knows that Hamas is a terrorist organization because Hamas attacked the Egyptian soldiers before many times. They even tried to take, you remember Black September when the Palestinians tried to overthrow the king of Jordan. Every Palestinian refugee in Lebanon, per se, in Egypt, they created trouble and problem to the countries that we're in. And yet, our government just indicated and said, we will bring 5,000 Palestinians to Canada. Listen, if they are people that in need, I got it. I got it. If they are women and children, if they are minority, if they are vulnerable minorities, as we call them, I got it. But if you want really to talk, if you really want to combat this and explain it to the people, I'm not explaining to the people that Hamas is a terrorist organization. They know Hamas is a terrorist organization. They understand, and they are fools by supporting Hamas, and they're supporting this issue. We understand that Hamas is victimized, the Israelis and the Palestinians, but with one little difference, my friend, when you say this sentence and when you make your word. Palestinians voted for Hamas. And today, if there is an election in Gaza again and in the West Bank, Hamas still will win the election. So the Palestinian people have to take the responsibility over their election. They have to take responsibility over supporting Hamas and giving them their vote, with my all due respect. In October 7, I keep saying in September 11, it's the same. In October 7, with my all due respect, how many of the Palestinians actually went inside the kibbutzim, kidnapped the Israelis and the Israeli women and children and killed them and sold some of them back again to Hamas? Did you know that? Did you know that some Palestinian civilians went inside of kibbutzim, kidnapped them and sold them to Hamas? Did you see when they brought this half-naked girl in the truck, how much people was celebrating? Did you see how much they was giving chocolate in the street for the attacks? While in Tel Aviv, today, every Saturday, you have people, they standing in demonstration against Netanyahu. They standing with Gaza. They standing with the Palestinians. They say, oh, poor Palestinians. You know, Israelis standing today in Tel Aviv. They feeling sorry. While there is no Palestinian, I did not meet one Palestinian that's sorry about October 7. So when we say Hamas did victimize both sides, let's just get the facts straight. Israelis did not vote for Hamas. Palestinians did. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And your passion speaks volumes, Majed. Raheel, would you like to respond to anything that Majed has said?
No, Majed is right, but at the same time, there are many Palestinians who are speaking out, who are fed up with Hamas, and they are speaking out. So it is the voice of these Palestinians and other Muslims that we take to the Muslim communities. You know, it's very ironical when we saw all the demonstrations in Canada with people out shouting hate against Israel. In a Muslim country like Pakistan and Bangladesh, they were not allowed to demonstrate in public stadiums against Hamas. So isn't it ironical that our freedoms are used against us? And this was happening right here in our streets. So when we speak to Muslims, first of all, it's very important to give them the correct narrative and to show them the evil of Hamas, exactly as Majed said just now. Many of them have shut their eyes to what Hamas actually did to them. This was, just a resistance movement. No, it was massacre, it was murder, it was rape, it was brutal. And the question we need to ask them is, what would happen if something like this happened to your sisters and mothers and daughters? So they need a wake-up call. Very few people are doing this with them. They need to be told the truth. They need to be given the right context. And slowly they do come round.
Thank you, Raheel. And I'm shocked that it's almost 8 p.m. And I think that how much time seems to have flown is a testament to this discussion and how engaging both of you have been. I like to end these discussions with something that our audience can take away. And I'm very grateful that both of you have spoken so candidly, so passionately, so upfront. It's a privilege to have you do that and to share your true thoughts and beliefs with us. So I'm going to ask, we'll go to Majed first and then to Raheel. We'll reverse the ladies first on this one. And I'm going to ask both of you, what would you like, and please be candid, because this is how we learn and this is how we grow. And there is lots that we need to learn as a Jewish community. What would you like to see from the Jewish community? What can the Jewish community do to further its own advocacy, but also to contribute to the advocacy that you are doing in your own communities and also for the greater Canadian society? Majed?
Who's first? Do you want me to go first?
You first.
Would you mind? I just want to make a statement to the Jewish community.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
this is your time for it. This is your time for it. Please speak from your heart.
Thank you. Just to the Jewish community and even to the Christian community, to the moderate Muslim community, to every community that's facing persecution from the extremists. I need to tell you, our enemy is very strong enemy. Our enemy have very strong weapons, very big army, but we have the Lord Almighty. After every night, there is new morning carrying new day. After every storm, there is sunshine. And after every persecution, there is victory. Believe me when I tell you, and remember this as long as you live. They can kill the believers, but they cannot kill the belief of our hearts. They can kill the dreamers, but nobody can kill. They can kill the dreamers, but nobody can kill the dream. Do not give up. It doesn't matter what will happen next. We will win because God is with us. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Majed. I think that's a perfect note to begin our conclusion. Raheel?
Thank you for that, Majed. It really makes a lot of sense. What I would like to end on is that in our organization, first of all, the Jewish community needs to support Majed, his organization, the Council of Muslims Against Anti-Semitism, and anyone who is speaking the truth and is clear in their mission and vision. In our organization, we engage in the 3 E's. And the first E is to expose the issue, expose the problem. A lot of people don't know the depth of the problem. Second is to educate the masses, which is all of us. And the third is to empower for change from within. Each one of us needs to look inside and say, what can I do to bring about change? And every little step helps. And of course, I pray every night for peace in Israel and for the return of the hostages. And I will end on one line. Israel is the world's best kept secret. Let's let the world know.
Majed, Raheel, thank you both for your passion, for your candor, for the work that you're doing, not just for your own communities, not just to assist the Jewish community, but truly to impact and make Canadian society better for this generation and for the next. As a Canadian, as a human rights activist myself, I'm deeply indebted to and in awe of your work. So thank you so much for taking the time out of what I'm sure is your busy schedules to be with us here tonight. To our audience, thank you for joining us. I do want to apologize for the brief technical difficulties we had at the end, but I'm glad that we overcame them and we were able to have a constructive and passionate and powerful conversation. And before we conclude, I also need to give a big thank you to Bernie and Joel from the B'nai Brith team who helped to make this discussion a reality and who have taken part of their night for this production. So thank you all.
Thank you. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And I see some questions in the chat just as people are signing off. I will put my email in the chat for everyone. And if anyone has any further questions and if I can be of assistance, I am happy to.
And Richard, feel free to send them to us as you think fit.
Certainly, Raheel. I will continue to mitigate this discussion, and we will only continue to work together.
Thank you, everyone. Good night and God bless.